This is the newsroom for Tuesday, July 6, 2021. We're broadcasting to you on E1, Scar TV, NTN, and Tarzi TV in Bartica. In the headlines, a Barbies magistrate on Tuesday dismissed the charge against two men who are accused of murdering Isaiah Henry, one of the Barbies teens whose mutilated body was found last year in Cottonfield, West Coast, Barbies. A young Essequibo farmer is found dead and his family suspects foul play.
I don't think that my son committed suicide. Someone murdered my son.
One child now remains in the COVID-19 ICU while the others are recovering well. The government continues to uphold its rejection of a list of promotions of members of the Guyana Police Force by the Police Service Commission, whose chairman remains suspended. Some $900 million in young cane crops at the Albion estate have been damaged due to flooding. And in sport, strict liability for doping infringements, says WADA rep Dr. Karen Pilgrim. And West Indies head coach Phil Simmons wants technical and tactical changes from West Indies T20 batsmen. With the news, I'm Fariza Hanif. We're glad you can join us. A Barbies magistrate on Tuesday dismissed the charge against two men who are accused of murdering Isaiah Henry, one of the Barbies teens whose mutilated body was discovered in the farmlands of Cotton Tree, West Coast, Barbies on September 4, 2020. The magistrate upheld a no-case submission made by Dexter Todd, the attorney for Vinod Gopal and Anil Sanchara, on the grounds that there was not enough evidence for the matter to be tried in the High Court. The same accused were also charged with the murder of Joel Henry, and so they remain on remand for this murder, as the preliminary inquiry is set to commence on August 10th for this matter. Kurt Campbell joins us.
Two men who were accused of the brutal murders of teen cousins Isaiah and Joel Henry were on Tuesday relieved of the charges of murder relating to Isaiah by Magistrate Peter Yu. The magistrate in his ruling agreed with defense lawyer Dexter Todd's submission that the state did not produce any admissible evidence for the murder charges to stand. Those charged are 34-year-old Anil Sanchara, called Dan Poland Rasta, of the Edward Village, West Coast, Barbies, and 30-year-old Vinod Gopal, called Maga, of Yakusari, Blackbush, Polder, currently in Barbies. Speaking to the newsroom by phone, Todd reminded that although a third man was charged, 20-year-old Akar Singh, called Monkey, of Zealat squatting area, East Bank, Essequibo, Sanchara and Gopal were jointly charged because the police claimed a confession statement was given by Singh. Todd also explained that the preliminary inquiry for Isaiah was separated from that of Joel.
And the court now has set the 10th of August for the commencement of the preliminary inquiry into Joel Henry's murder. So even though they are discharged from Isaiah Henry, they still remain on remand because they have to complete Joel's preliminary inquiry. It is the same type of evidence that is likely to come in Joel Henry's PI that was produced in Isaiah's PI. So it's likely that they will walk again in relation to that.
The attorney claims that all the evidence produced by the prosecution were formal evidence that did not implicate any individual. He said the witnesses that the police took statements from later appeared in court and told the magistrate that they did not tell the police some of the things that were included in the written statements.
This goes right back to what Nigel was saying. Guyana really needed forensic help in relation to this murder because there were no IC witnesses and because there was no evidence which could have connected the person, the little DNA that they did came back inconclusive. Right. So really and truly, you couldn't connect nobody to no murder. So at the end of the prosecution's case, there was a big question mark. Who really killed Isaiah? Right. Because there was nothing.
The police had claimed that the three men murdered the cousins between September 5, 2020 and September 6, 2020 at Cotton Tree, Backdam, West Coast, Barbies. Singh had allegedly told his relatives and another person about the crime and his role in it. One of the persons he told informed the police, and Singh was then arrested at his Zealat house and later told detectives of the others who were involved. Todd said although he's representing the accused pro bono, he stands willing to represent Singh if the matter goes to the High Court. According to Todd, Singh has maintained his innocence at each court hearing and claimed he never gave the police a confession. Todd believes the police concocted a story of a man who cannot read or write and went to the court hoping for the best.
Meanwhile, mere hours after the decision of the magistrate to dismiss the charges, the Director of Public Prosecutions, Shalimar Ali Haq, has challenged the decision. The DPP, in a statement, said that there was sufficient evidence against the two named accused at the time that the charge was instituted. The DPP said she now needs to ascertain why the murder charge against the two accused was discharged, and she intends to take appropriate action. Pursuant to Section 72(1) of the Criminal Law Procedure Act, the DPP has written to the magistrate requesting the documents taken at the preliminary inquiry. We tell you now that family members of Essequibo rice farmer Narendra Sicharan are not buying the story that he died by suicide after his body was found hanging from a jamun tree at Reliance Back Dam. Shikimade has our story.
I don't think that my son committed suicide. Someone murdered my son.
That was Anita Sicharan, mother of 29-year-old rice farmer Narendra Sicharan, whose body was found hanging from a jamun tree at Reliance Back Dam, Essequibo Region 2 on Tuesday morning, a few hours after he was reported missing by his relatives. The woman relayed to the newsroom that her son, who resides at Mainstay Public Road, had left for the Back Dam to visit his rice field on Monday at around 17:30 hours, but never returned home. Family members got worried and a frantic search ensued. His sister decided to track his phone's location via his Google account, and the location pinned him at Reliance Back Dam, a few villages away from his rice field. The search, however, ended tragically when the body was found. Anita explained that during the search, relatives found the motorcycle he left with abandoned in some bushes. A few meters away lay the long boots he wore, and his body hung some 2 miles from where the motorcycle was thrown.
My son left home yesterday afternoon with clean clothes, and when we saw him this morning on the hanging rope, his clothes, the back of his pants, his whole body was full with mud. His foot was full of mud, and we found the pair of long boots that he was wearing thrown away.
The family believes that Sicharan could not have died by suicide and pointed to a recent rift between him and other farmers. It is alleged that Sicharan did vapor spraying of his rice fields, but it extended to about 30 acres belonging to other farmers, damaging their crops in the process. Investigations are ongoing. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Shikimade.
The family of Yesu Persaud, a 37-year-old goldsmith, was plunged into a state of mourning after he lost his life on Monday evening. Persaud was crushed by a motor lorry at Hope West Access Road, Enmore, on the east coast of Demerara. His family is now calling for swift justice. Shikimade joins us again.
According to the police report, the accident occurred at around 19:30 hours. The lorry GWW 8721 was at the time being driven by a 34-year-old Talakram Dindial. Dindial, according to police, was offloading sand on the northern parapet, and while lowering the tray of the lorry and reversing, his wife reportedly indicated to him that he ran over one of their dogs. But upon checking, he realized that a body was lying under the truck. The body was later identified as Yesu Persaud, a 37-year-old goldsmith. Persaud's sister, Sirani, told the newsroom on Tuesday at her brother's Fowler's Housing Scheme home that family members who also rushed to the scene pleaded with the officers to remove the truck from his body as he was still breathing, but these calls went unheeded.
My brother under the truck wheel. My brother under the truck wheel. The police, the 4 policemen was there. I asked them, I said, please remove the truck. Remove the truck from my brother. My brother is alive. He is alive. He's not dead. My brother always tell me he's strong. He would not die. He's strong. He told me strong. He always tell me that. The police them was there and they refused to move the truck, reverse the truck from my brother. The next thing, instead of the police them to call for an ambulance, they bring a horse. And when people see me, my big son take a sheet for them cover my brother. When my son carry the sheet and they cover my brother move. My brother was moving. Everybody see my brother was moving and I'm a holla, the man will live. I reverse the truck. The owner for the truck hold on from the key and not releasing the key for move the truck. That was all me know. And then the horse that come for my brother, the police did not call an ambulance to take my brother to the hospital. They call a horse. One and only brother we get, means the oldest one. Me and he alone. And he had nobody now, me and me alone. He left me to grieve. But I need justice. Me need justice for my brother.
Persaud was eventually taken to the Georgetown Public Hospital where he was pronounced dead. His father, Walter Persaud, told the newsroom that doctors at the hospital informed him that his son could have been saved.
The man said he could have made it, but he would have paralyzed. The man said the person had bossy heart. He would have paralyzed with a cripple. Because me was the only one allowed to go in. And me go in.
It take too long for move my brother from there.
He better leave him paralyzed and then get him home. Have him combine him.
The family is calling for swift justice. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Shakima Day.
The government continues to uphold its rejection of a list of promotions of members of the Guyana Police Force by the Police Service Commission. One child now remains in the COVID-19 ICU while the others are recovering well, and some $900 million in young cane crops at the Albion estate have been damaged due to flooding. Those and more stories when the newsroom returns. The government on Tuesday continued to uphold its rejection of a list of purported promotions of members of the Guyana Police Force by the Police Service Commission. It comes even as the PSC shuns the suspension by President Irfan Ali as unlawful and calls on the police to effect the promotions or face legal action. Here is Kurt Campbell.
The chairman of the Police Service Commission, PSC Paul Slow, remains in suspension as directed by President Irfan Ali and therefore has no powers to instruct the police commissioner, Attorney General Al Nandlal said on Tuesday. Slow has sought to compel the police commissioner to make promotions as recommended by the Police Service Commission. Police Commissioner Acting Nigel Hoppy on Tuesday declined to comment on Slow's missive to him to prepare and issue a special promotion order which would give effect to a purported 2020 promotion list. Slow has threatened that should Hoppy not issue the special promotion order by noon on Tuesday, legal proceedings would be initiated against him. Slow believes it amounts to a defying of the Commission's orders, even as he continues to reject his suspension as unlawful. But according to Nandlal, Slow's request is null void and of no effect. Nandlal, in brief comments via telephone, reminded that Slow and the entire PSC were suspended by President Irfan Ali.
This commission has been suspended by a decision of His Excellency, the President. That decision stands until and unless it is withdrawn, revoked, or refuted. So whatever request Mr. Slow is making is null, void, and of no effect. He has no authority or power to make such a request. And that's the legal position, that's the government's position.
Right. Can you say if yourself or the Home Affairs Minister would have communicated with the Police Commissioner, and what is his position rather on the? I haven't communicated with you. You'll have to ask me to them. Yeah, I did. No, they did. After Chief Justice Acting Roxanne George threw out a challenge to the list by other senior police officers. The ruling and the issuance of the promotion list came just 10 days after President Irfan Ali suspended the entire commission on June 17, 2021. The newsroom reached out to the lawyer representing the Police Service Commission, Selwyn Peters, for more clarity on the legal action to be taken. There was no immediate response from Mr. Peters. While the police commissioner had initially acknowledged the promotion list on June 30, 2021, no one has said whether he has responded to Slow's latest letter. Up to noon on Tuesday, the issuance of the special promotion order seemed unlikely.
The Guyana Sugar Corporation is faced with yet another challenge, even as the company is trying to resuscitate the sector. Some $900 million in young cane crops at the Albion estate have been damaged due to the high levels of flooding. And although the rains have ceased temporarily and water has begun receding across the country, the prognosis at the Albion estate does not bode well for the industry, as it stands to lose 80% of the first crop for 2022. Shikimade reports.
The Chief Executive Officer of the Guyana Sugar Corporation, Narayan Singh, painted a bleak picture of operations at the Albion estate that has since dwindled due to the recent flood situation. Singh on Tuesday reported that 30% of young canes that should have been available for the first crop were lost due to the flooding, equating to some $900 million in losses for the corporation. And the bad news may trickle over into the new year, as he explained that there is an expected 80% loss of the first crop for 2022. According to the CEO, when the rainy season commenced, it was double the predicted average, and this was also compounded by the overflowing of the Kanji Creek into the Albion estate and the overflowing of the Borosuri and Kanji catchment conservancies. Added to that, Singh stated that cattle farmers were breaking the impoundments in the cane fields to drain their farmlands. Despite this, Gaisuka continues to battle the situation, with work already commenced to aid drainage, but that does not mean things will return to normal at the Albion estate.
Thanks to the help of our partners in the NDIA and our own infrastructure, Gaisuku has been able to drain about 4.5 million gallons of that water 4.5 million tons of that water into the Atlantic Ocean. But we have to remember there's 60 million tons of water sitting in that Kanji Basin. So even if the rain stops like today, finito, it means that it will be at least another 15 days before we get rid of all of that water. So this is the reality. But the rain has not stopped. So this is what I want to make sure that we understand. This is a very tricky situation because these sugar estates are not only suffering from the rainfall, but they have all these additional flow of water into the Albion estate.
A similar situation presented at the Blairmont and Iflat estates. However, the losses were minimal. Overall, Gaisuku, according to the CEO, is expected to lose some 14,112 metric tons of sugar in the second crop of 2021. This equates to a whopping $1.5 billion. That figure amassed from only a preliminary analysis of the estates. The figure is expected to be worse when a total analysis is completed in 4 weeks. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Shikimade.
One child is currently in the COVID-19 intensive care unit at the National Infectious Diseases Hospital at Liliendale, Georgetown, receiving treatment after being infected with COVID-19. This was highlighted by the Minister of Health, Dr. Frank Anthony, on Tuesday during his daily COVID-19 update.
For hospitalization, we have seen a slight decrease in hospitalization overall. So as of today, we have 61 persons who are in the hospital, with 14 of those in the ICU. Of those 61 that we have in the hospital, 3 are children. 2 are in the wards, so they're not in the ICU, they're in the wards. Their prognosis looks quite good. And we have 1 child right now that is in the ICU. So we continue to monitor these children to see how they're progressing, to make sure that they're getting all the meds that that is required, and all the other measures that should be taken are being taken. And we are hoping that they'll be able to get better and be out of the hospital shortly.
When the newsroom returns, the Ministry of Health establishes a special COVID-19 vaccination site for persons who are HIV positive. You're watching the newsroom. As the Caribbean grapples with the severe impact of natural disasters, the new chairman of CARICOM, Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda, Gaston Brown, made a strong call for climate reparations. This call was made on Monday as the 47th regular meeting of the heads of government of CARICOM got underway. Vishani Raghuber reports.
During the first 6 months of the year, Caribbean countries have grappled with the effects of a volcanic eruption in St. Vincent and Grenadines, flooding in Guyana and Suriname, and the annual hurricane season, in addition to the COVID-19 pandemic. These natural disasters, Caribbean leaders acknowledge, illustrate the vulnerability of the Caribbean region. And as a 2-day 42nd regular meeting of the heads of government of CARICOM got underway on Monday, the new chairman of CARICOM, Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda Gaston Brong, positioned the intersecting issues of climate change, natural disasters, and the region's vulnerability to these squarely on the agenda.
The causes of the climate crisis have already been scientifically established, and the time has come for those countries irresponsible enough to continue their damaging emissions and practices to be held accountable. It is my view that real progress on the climate crisis will only be made when the major polluters are made legally liable for the damage that they cause. The current system of discretionary international assistance for climate damage, where pledges are honored only fitfully, is both inadequate and inequitable in building climate resilience. This is a call for climate reparations that CARICOM must take up urgently and engage in vigorous diplomatic outreach to build international consensus on this issue.
The call for reparations, cognizant of the region's vulnerability to climate change, has been part of CARICOM's work for reparatory justice. In addition to the efforts of reparatory justice to advance the region's development, the new CARICOM chairman also stated that there must be a review of the region's dependence on tourism and commodity exports. Instead, he contended that the region should focus on diversification and the crucial role of the agricultural sector.
Included in that conversation must be a more meaningful and revitalized role for the CDB and the CDF. And I ask the question, are they constituted to provide the requisite support to governments and to the private sector, who must be at the forefront of this diversification effort? I contend that these two vital CARICOM institutions are overdue for realignment and retooling that will allow them to scale up their operations and become facilitators to drive economic expansion in the region. We need to have the hard discussions necessary to empower both the CDB and the CDF, both now under fresh leadership, to provide that support. Creative and innovative solutions are needed to meet this moment in the revival of our regional economy.
During his opening remarks, Prime Minister Brong also called for the region to collectively tackle vaccine hesitancy so that more citizens can take the life-saving COVID-19 vaccines. He urged leaders to think about the harmonized health protocols that can facilitate greater interregional travel, and he said that the full operationalization of the Caribbean Single Market and Economy, CSME, is necessary to help transform Caribbean economies. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Vishani Raghavir.
The Health Ministry will intensify its vaccination efforts by making the National Care and Treatment Center at Thomas Street, Georgetown, into a COVID-19 vaccination site for people who are HIV positive.
Well, one of the issues that we have heard is that persons who are HIV positive did not feel comfortable coming to one of our regular vaccination sites. And so as of this week, we have been working with the National Care and Treatment site here in Georgetown to make that also into a vaccination site. So they should start from this week. So patients going there for their regular treatment, they would be counseled about taking the vaccine, and they can get the vaccine right there. And we're hoping to replicate this at all of our care and treatment sites so that these patients don't have to feel uncomfortable and go to one of the fixed sites. And, you know, so I think this is going to encourage more people to take the vaccine, persons who are HIV positive, and we're hoping to see better uptake of the vaccine among this population.
That was the Minister of Health, Dr. Frank Anthony, who spoke during his COVID-19 update on Tuesday. According to the World Health Organization, WHO, the human immunodeficiency virus, HIV, causes harm to the immune system and resultantly interferes with the body's ability to fight infection and disease. Importantly, within the context of the pandemic, individuals who are living with HIV are considered increasingly vulnerable to COVID-19, since this would be considered a comorbidity. A comorbidity, also according to the WHO, refers to the presence of one or more additional diseases or disorders in the same individual. And, in addition to providing easier access to the life-saving COVID-19 vaccines for people living with HIV, the minister said that focus will be on providing the same easy access to other people with comorbidities.
We will be monitoring with other types of patients as well. And we are hoping that we can introduce a similar service for patients with chronic non-communicable diseases and some of the more popular clinics that we have, that we would use these opportunities to talk to people about getting the vaccines.
Meanwhile, the health minister stated that at the end of Monday, a total of 235,796 people, or about 48.4% of the targeted adult population, received their first dose of one of the 3 COVID-19 vaccines that are used locally. Additionally, 114,394 people, or about 23.5% of the targeted population, received both their first and second doses of the vaccines. The vaccines used locally are the AstraZeneca, Sinopharm, and Sputnik V vaccines. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Vishani Ragbir.
When the newsroom returns, the financial, weather and bridge reports, along with sport news with Avinash Ramzan. That's it for me, Fariza Hanif. Take care.
Welcome back to Newsroom. Now for a look at what's happening in sport. We start things off with an issue that has been trending over the past week. Guyana's doping control officer, Dr. Karen Pilgrim, has weighed in on the debate about marijuana being on the list of banned substances by the World Anti-Doping Agency after the American sprinter Sha'Carri Richardson accepted a 1-month suspension for testing positive for the substance. The suspension means that she will be barred from running her signature event, the 100-meter dash at the upcoming Tokyo Olympics. Hakim Green spoke to Dr. Pilgrim today and filed this report.
Richardson's suspension has sparked a debate over whether the substance should remain a banned one, since in most U.S. states it is decriminalized. Richardson, who was a medal favorite and expected to be serious competition for Jamaica's Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price, the 2-time 100-meter gold medalist. In an interview with the Newsroom Sport on Tuesday, Dr. Pilgrim explained that WADA rules don't necessarily target illegal substances and orders on the athletes to follow the rules.
There are 3 points that WADA looks at in putting things on the list in the first place. One of obvious is if it enhances or has the potential to enhance performance. Another is if it does or could have an effect on the health of the athlete. And finally is what WADA describes as breaching the spirit, violating the spirit of sports, which of course is a broad concept that may have different interpretations. I honestly can't say why marijuana was initially put on the banned list, but what I can say is that every year when the list is reviewed, there is widespread consultation, including all of these international federations. So if there was good reason to take it off the list, I would think it would have been taken off. That's very clear under the code, that the athlete, you used the correct term, has a strict liability for whatever they take into their body. And Ms. Richardson herself, I must say I admire the manner in which she took ownership of what she did. She admitted, as I understand, in what I heard from her, that she knew, but that she's human and that she had reasons at the time with the death of her mother. But she knew. And athletes, especially at her level, are supposed to know and to take responsibility for what they eat, drink, or in this case, maybe smoke.
In 2019, WADA exempted cannabidiol from this category. However, all other cannabis, whether natural or synthetic, are prohibited in competition, even though CBD is permitted at all times.
What is important to remember also is that, as I think everybody now knows, marijuana, the metabolites of marijuana stay in your system for weeks, maybe up to 2 months, I think. But what the testing and the labs would look at is the level in your system. So if you smoke some weed a week before, 3 days before, you would expect that those levels would have decreased to below the level that they're looking at. I think it's 150 nanograms, something like that they're looking for now. So that makes a difference also when you're tested.
Should it be taken off the list? Dr. Pilgrim had this to say.
I know there's some things, and marijuana may be one, that arguably calms you down, you know, cools you out, so to speak. So maybe for track and field, for a nervous athlete, for an athlete that may be prone to false starting, maybe, pure speculation, it may be considered that it helps them in that regard. Similarly for darts, which we were just talking about, shooting, the kind of thing where you need to be calm, you need to be relaxed. It could be considered that it enhances your performance. Maybe what should be done, and what I suspect may be done, is that similar to alcohol, which used to be banned in competition by WADA in certain sports, they may decide to leave it up to the international federations responsible for individual sports, whether they want to prohibit it during competition. That may be the next step, I suspect.
For the newsroom, Akin Green.
The Guyana Cricket Board, through the Essequibo Cricket Development Committee, donated 50 scorebooks and 12 boxes of balls to the Essequibo Cricket Board on Sunday. Ryan Hercules, who chairs the committee, indicated that this donation is just a small step in the bigger picture of support from the GCB, and it came as a result of the initial consultations with clubs in Essequibo. Acting President of the Essequibo Cricket Board, Alvin Johnson, said they are happy for the assistance and will be looking forward to more from the GCB, which makes an impact in offsetting some finances given the complexity of travelling in Essequibo. Meanwhile, Johnson indicated there are 6 top priorities for the Essequibo Cricket Board, the first of which is assistance from the GCB for rehabilitation works on the board's hostel in Regina. West Indies head coach Phil Simmons feels that the batsmen need to change both their tactics and technique to be more effective during the middle overs of their T20 innings. The coach made these comments after they lost the series 2-3 to South Africa on Saturday.
In a recently concluded 5-match series in Grenada, West Indies soaked up 242 dot balls, which is equivalent to 40.3 overs. Apart from the first match where they only batted 15 overs and had 38 dot balls, all other matches they had in excess of 46 dot balls per innings. It eventually became a stark difference between the two sides as the hosts lacked strike rotation to complement their power hitting.
I think it's definitely a tactical and technical change. You know, you've got to be able to assess what situation we're in, and from that situation you've got to be able to formulate a plan for us to score the runs we need to score in that section. So tactically we've been lacking.
The Proteas spinners led the stranglehold of the West Indies and was mainly drawn over 7-14, which Simmons said has to change.
I think on the batting side we've let ourselves down in every game so far except the first game, and we chased down the runs in 15 overs. So it's something that we've got to look at and make sure that especially over 7-14 we are getting better at it. We are learning how to deal with it in order that we can get proper scores.
Simmons didn't write off the possibility to changes to the provisional 18-man squad.
I don't know. It's something we'll go back to the hotel and think about. I haven't really thought in that direction yet, so let's see when I settle down what happens.
West Indies will now head to St. Lucia, where they will play 5-20 internationals against Australia starting from Friday. For the newsroom, Akin Green.
Meanwhile, Stephanie Taylor gave one of the greatest performances in the history of women's T20 cricket as she piloted West Indies women to a huge victory over Pakistan women in the 3rd CG Insurance T20 on Sunday. The inspirational captain was sensational with the ball, taking a hat-trick in the final over to end with 4 for 17 as Pakistan made 102. She then top-scored with 43 not out as the home team strolled to 106 for 4 off 19.1 overs to make 3 wins in a row and a clean sweep of the series. Taylor and player of the series, Shamila Connell, who took 5 wickets in the 3 games, spoke to CWI Media after the series' success.
Skip, congratulations. First off, hat-trick. First in T20 internationals for you. Victory. 40-something runs, player of the match today. A lot of accolades. 3-0 in the series. Let's start with your hat trick. Second wicket that you took. What was going through your mind? Did you think that I can get the third one?
Well, honestly, I wasn't thinking wicket to be honest. Like, we know that we had to, runs was more on the forefront, and trying to restrict them with not getting like 115, because I know that that wicket coming down would be kind of hard to bat on. So as much runs we could keep them less to, then we would have a good chase.
When you went out there, you lost, 2 quick wickets and an additional third one. What was going through your mind? Pressure building?
Oh yeah, yeah. I wouldn't say panic, but yeah, I know that today is a day that I had to step up. The first 2 games didn't go as how I would like, and I just thought that the wicket today was try to get yourself in. Once you're in, you know that you could go big, and I think that was my plan for today.
3-0 victory. First time in a long time we've won a series so convincingly. First series win since 2019. How does it feel?
It feels good, to be honest. We know that we've been out of touch, lost in England, but it's a good feeling to actually, come back and win, and to win 3-0. We haven't done that in a long time, and a series win to top it off too. So this is a great confidence booster going into the 50 over. So hopefully we could have a 5-0 in that.
Congratulations, Shamilia Cornell, player of the series for the CG Insurance T20 Internationals versus Pakistan women. How does it feel?
It feels good, being able to put in the nets in the war and coming out here and executing and seeing it paid off. It feels really great.
Did you see yourself finishing with this award at the start of the series?
At the beginning I said, well, I'm looking forward to getting the most player of the series, and player of the match, and it actually came up, so yeah.
What did you do different for this series than you did previously?
I think I was a lot more focused this time. I'd been a senior player for a very long time. I wasn't being able to execute, so being able to do that now was a good thing.
And England have named an inexperienced 18-man replacement squad for their ODI series with Pakistan after 3 players and 4 staff members tested positive for COVID-19. The teams were due to begin the series with an ODI in Cardiff on Thursday, but tests administered on Monday returned 7 positive results, and the rest of England's party will be required to self-isolate as a result. The new squad features 9 uncapped players. Ben Stokes returns to captain the squad, having been absent after sustaining a broken finger when playing in the IPL earlier this year. The uncapped contingent comprises Bryden Carse, Zach Crawley, Lewis Gregory, Will Jacks, Tom Helm, Don Lawrence, David Payne, Phil Salt and John Simpson. Also, Crawley, Gregory and Lawrence have represented England in other formats. Now, Guyana's Olympic-bound boxer Kevin Allicock is upping the intensity in the 3-week high-level camp in Russia ahead of the Games starting July 23. Under the supervision of AIBA 3-star coach Siebert Blake, the 22-year-old is settling in nicely in Russia, as we see in this highlights video from last weekend. And with that, we've come to the end of the news for this evening. Of course, you can find updates on these and other stories on our website, Newsroom.gy, our Facebook page and Instagram. On behalf of the entire news team, my name is Avinash Ramzan. Thanks for watching. Be safe. See you next week.